where it's always morning somewhere. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen, and here we are, right here in the middle of New York City in West Village.
In the West Village.
So excited to be here with you.
I know, it's not our first time here.
It's not our first time here, and certainly not our last, but Chris, tell us why West Village is so special.
Yes, so we're down here because we talked last week about the Stonewall Inn riots and the impact that it had on the LGBTQIA plus movement. And so as you will see behind us is the actual Stonewall Inn. And so where we are actually standing is on Christopher Street, but we are actually here where there are several LGBTQ plus places that people can come to. So the Stonewall Inn is probably the most notable. It also has the visitor center. So if you are coming and interested in learning more, if you're coming to the city and you would like to learn more about the Stonewall Inn riots, there are the options to come to the visitor center and learn more. You also have the Memorial Park, which is actually right behind us. And because it's actually Pride Month, they have the Pride flags all around the park. So we'll walk around the park in a little bit and you can kind of see some of those photos and the flags. There's actually a really great LGBTQ plus bar over here called The Monster. I have been known to go and sing at the...
We can't miss that, Chris singing.
Oh, we can miss that. You want to miss
at
that.
the Monster Bar. And we'll tell you all about the great places in this part of the city. But what I really want to talk about is what it means to Chris to be here in this area. And Chris, I'd love for you to share with us about the first time that you came to visit this area, Sheridan Square, and the Stonewall Inn.
Yeah, so the first time I ever came down here, my husband actually, my now husband, he was then my friend, brought me down in, I think it was 2016. He just like kind of gave me a tour of the city, and we ended up here. We went to Monster Bar. He pointed out Stonewall. That was kind of my first time to really see the area. And like I said in our last episode about Pride, I didn't really know at the time the level of importance that was Stonewall. And if you have the opportunity to come down here, you'll see there's lots of plaques and things that kind of commemorate what happened down here. I started reading those. I was hearing stories from people. I started researching what it was. And that's where I really learned the importance of the impact of this area.
I will say that the first time I came down here, it was actually to go to an ice cream shop. Because ice cream is definitely one of the best foods you can eat. And that was one of the New York experiences that we just had to hit on our first visit to New York, as sponsored by Chris, was the Big Gay Ice Cream Shop. And so that was down here. So I remember being here, but I did not understand the significance of this area. And so coming back after getting my history lesson and understanding what actually happened here in this area, on these streets, these like triangular, short little block intersecting streets all those years ago, it just fills me with goosebumps to know that there were people who were strong enough to stand up for what they believed in and who were tired of being seen as less than or subnormal or like they didn't belong or like they had to hide. Yeah. And I think just the significance of being here in this space where all of that happened reminds me that like now is as good a time as any for us to stand up for what we believe in. And for me, that is the kindness and like the empathy to treat everyone as human, regardless of like where you come from, who you love. You're human just like me, and we should all remember that. And you deserve the same rights that I get to have, and I'll keep fighting for those until that day comes. It's I don't know, what's the right word? It fills me with a sense of hope and respect and sadness at the same time, and like the tenacity to continue the fight until people are no longer seen as less than because they're different than like what is known as normal.
Yeah. I think here in New York, this area holds a very special place. When the Pride Parade comes through, this is generally where it ends. And so they have like main stages and things happening around the area that you party, you celebrate, it ends at Stonewall and they'll have flags all over it. My first Pride that I actually had the opportunity I somehow got into walking into it, and I don't really remember how that happened.
Yeah, you walked in your first
did.
Pride?
I did. I ended up in the parade. But we ended here, and some photos that we've shared were actually like right here with Stonewall behind us, and it was really, really great. And it's like really brought up a lot of conversation about like, is there still a need? Is there still space required for bars that cater directly for the gay community, the lesbian community? And like I said, to me, like when I first moved here, it was in those bars where I heard more about our history and about the struggles, and not just the struggles, but the fight that actually happened to secure the rights, to provide space for us. And to me, that is something important to preserve.
It's a really interesting question that you posed to me. I think it was yesterday. Is there still a need to have like gay bars specifically? And my first instinct is to say, well, yeah, because so often the experience is that you're still seen as somehow not the norm.
Yeah.
And so you need a safe place where you can actually go kind of relax and feel just like anybody else would.
Yeah.
And that is not always a given, in other places. And so for anyone that has that sense of community, a place that you find as where you can just kind of go, like, let the stress of the week fall away and, relax and, what we do after work on a Friday. Yeah. I think, until that day comes where you really feel like that is a safe space that we all have created together, my opinion, being kind of outside looking in, is that they are still really important, not so that you can differentiate yourself from the rest, but so that you have a safe space that you can go and just kind of exhale and not have to be on your guard. And I think that's what Stonewall was about, right?
Well, I mean, yes, like it was opportunities for people to go out, to be amongst people who are like them.
And not have to worry about being themselves.
Right. And so, or not being themselves.
Yeah, well, not have to worry about not being themselves. Right. Yeah.
So I do think back then, those spaces were really needed because it was illegal, like all of the things that we talked about. But I do think the question being posed more now is there is more cultures coming together. And people are welcome. But in some spaces more than others.
I will absolutely say our experience in sharing this content this month is that, it is absolutely not something. It's not a safe space. It's not a space that's welcome. There's definitely been some haterade thrown our way for just speaking up for kindness and humanity. And, and then there's been some people that have dissented in a way that's like a little less hateful, but still a little assertive, like by saying that you are wrong for who you are and that I am wrong for supporting you. And like just to be told that you're wrong for being the person that you are. What a privilege that was a surprise to me to have to experience, and something that's not okay. So my opinion is that we will continue to advocate until there is a space where, I'm not saying everyone has to agree, but just that you don't have to.
We have a right to exist.
Yeah.
We have a right to love the people that we want to love. They're just as you probably did not have a conscious decision around the person that you loved or the person you were attracted to. I had no more of that than you did. I appreciate you for saying that and for being an ally and for responding to some of those comments. And like, no, we will share this content. We will post it because I do think it takes brave voices who are in it, but it also, like we've talked about, takes allies who are willing to help and support in the fight.
Well, I think for me, it's not a choice. It's just being human.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess that's one of the things that we would ask all of you is we so appreciate you listening. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you helping us to step back and ask the question of yourselves, of others. I continue to ask that question of myself every day, whether it's about pride specifically or, other things. Like, am I seeing people for who they really are? Am I leading with empathy? And I think that's what we're about, is how do we continue to put ourselves in places where we lead with empathy and we continue to grow our understanding of what that looks like. And for me, that is what standing in this square feels like this time around. Now that I am educated and I am so fortunate to have someone who was willing to help me understand how to get educated, because this is not something that I was taught.
What? This wasn't in your U.S. history class?
I mean, through all of my various education endeavors, this information was not that accessible, and it did not come that easy. And I actually had to go through a process of unlearning a lot of things that I had been taught. I would not have been able to do that without the empathy that you have shown that to meet me where I'm at, and know that how can we come together and see each other as people and start changing the way that we interact if we don't figure out how to understand each other for who we are, and if we're not willing to share those experiences together. So I know how fortunate I am to have a friend like you, and to be able to do that.
Same. All right. Well, how about we take a little walk around and I can point out some of the amazing things that this part of the city has?
I would love that. I will follow you.
All right. Well, here we go. The joys of recording on city streets. You'll see here on the right, this is actually the Stonewall Inn Monument. It is a park that is here in the middle. Along the park are pictures from, really they're throughout history, of the different meetings that occurred, the different people that were involved, the different protests that occurred. This area is truly steeped in a lot of LGBTQIA plus history. The pictures do actually have QR codes on them, and so using them you can kind of follow the history and the explanation of what they are about. Ooh, Ace, you're gonna work hard on this one.
Got that producer making the $0. I think for me, this picture says a lot. Like, it's just the emotion where you see somebody holding a sign saying, I am a human being. And to me, that's the point of all of this. That's the point of our conversation, is not I am human in spite of,
right,
but I am human, just period.
Right.
And the fact that people have to still say that, who don't fit what pop culture determines is the norm, I think is something we all have to work to change.
I don't disagree.
And to know that, these people stood here how many years ago?
I don't think they stood here.
These people stood on the streets how many years ago? But just the fact that these people were standing on the streets holding the sign not that long ago.
The Stonewall riot occurred back in 1969. That is recent history.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking hundreds of years ago. So this is a recent fight that people have gone through.
And we're still fighting.
Correct. A fight that is still happening every day. And depending on who is politically in power, how loud and how forceful you have to be.
Just to say I am human too.
Just to say I'm human. And that's all I'm asking for.
I think to me, that picture is worth a million words.
Yep, I'd agree. So to the left here, you will see the Monster Bar. This is the bar I was talking about where there is someone playing the piano and you have a bunch of people who are standing around and singing and having a great time. Show tunes, pop hits, all of them. And then downstairs, there's space to actually dance and just have a great time with people who are like you, like, you know, it's part of your community. So this is a great bar. This is one of the first ones that Frank brought me to whenever he took me on the tour all those years ago. And it still holds a special place in my heart. Anytime I have friends who come to the city, I love to bring them down here for the history part, but also for the fun.
Yeah, I love that there is this place in the world where you can come and visibly see and feel the support that exists. I just think it should be in a lot more places than it is today.
Agreed. So we talked about how the Stonewall Inn riots happened back in 1969. The first commemorative parade, if you will, happened in the summer of 1970. It actually wasn't until 2016 that the space down here was actually designated a national monument, which brings about certain protections for the space, certain funding for the space. So back in 2016, President at the time, Barack Obama, actually declared this space a national monument, and it has since been given what I would say is the respect that it deserves for the iconic movement that it didn't just make here in New York City, but that ripple effect that it had further into the United States and ultimately across the world.
That's amazing.
So Sylvia Rivera, this was one of the Sylvia Rivera was actually one of the people who we would now consider a trans individual who kind of led the march and spearheaded the rights for the LGBTQIA community back in the time. Even when individuals who, like I said in the previous episode, back in that time, they called themselves transvestites, and they were kind of like even the outcasts of the LGBTQIA community. This is one of the individuals who really helped spearhead the rights, the movement, the marches, to truly bring this to center stage, not just for New York City, but for the American public at large.
It's beautiful to see that there's a space here where people who can relate to the feelings that Sylvia felt and that she stood up for can pay homage to her and to take power from the courage that she showed to continue standing up for us to just see each other as humans. And this is the Stonewall Inn. This is where it happened. And I love the sign in the window that says, "In the name of those who came before me, I pledge to be brave, to be true to myself, and to fight like hell for equality." And I think, Chris, when you say Pride is not just a parade, this is a celebration of the fight that those who came before have started, have taken up to be able to be free, to be who they are, and the fight that we carry on, the fight that we all carry on until we create space where people can be seen as equally valuable, equally human. I think that's just a really powerful moment.
So this is a photo of Marsha P. Johnson on the right, another individual who I would say really spearheaded the way for the riots that occurred. Based on some history, it is said that she potentially actually threw the first rock that kind of started the whole thing. And you know, depending on whatever you read or whatever you believe, at the end of the day, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera were individuals who are on the front lines of this.
Well, and I think to be very clear and very fair, when we say throw the first rock, rocks were thrown. This community had been oppressed for many years, had been treated incredibly poorly, had been killed for being who they are. When we say through the first rock, what we mean is in the uprising to take their humanity back.
Correct.
What we don't mean is
they didn't start the fight.
They did not start the fire.
No, they did not. You hear the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. This was the straw that broke the camel's back in June of 1969. And as people are being, carted away, the potential of jobs being lost, the risk of lives being upended forever, people finally just had enough. And this was the strike back. And like I said, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were considered on the front lines.
And I love the reminder that it just takes one of us to have enough courage to stand up and to fight back and to use our voice to say enough is enough, and all people are human. Yep. And we all have the same right to dignity and respect, and we should all consider how we can be more like Marsha.
Yep, agreed. If you are able to visit the Stonewall National Monument, you're going to find that there are pictures all around the fences. And these are all pictures from moments in history that have been important to the LGBTQ plus movement. There are 3 photos specifically that have a little extra sparkle, or what I like to call love, on them. And these are photos of Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and Zazu Nova. These are all prominent figures within the LGBTQ plus community prior to the Stonewall uprising. However, there are reports that do say each one of them was the first to throw the glass or throw the rock or throw that brick that led to the community uprising against the unfair treatment. No matter what the truth is, they were all very active in this movement, and following the Stonewall riots of 1969, they continued to be individuals who fought for the rights of the LGBTQ plus community. Following the Stonewall riots, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera went on to establish an organization by the name of Street Transvestites Action Revolutionaries, also known as STAR. They liked their sparkle. And in 1970, Zazu Nova was a founding member of the first organization exclusively to support the LGBTQ youth of the city, and it was called New York City's Gay Youth. I do think it's important to share that as we were pulling this information together to finalize this video, we found that many of the pictures, the stories, and the history of these individuals had been removed or edited from the National Monument's website per the January 20th, 2025 proclamation that there are only two biological sexes, male and female. Many organizations that support the LGBTQ plus community wrote letters, made noise, got the press involved. Ultimately, whenever I was looking through all of this stuff, the one that stood out to me came from the National Parks Conservation Association. This man by the name of Timothy Leonard. He said, "Erasing letters or web pages does not change the history or the contributions of our transgender community members at Stonewall or anywhere else. Stonewall inspires, and our parks must continue to include diverse stories that welcome and represent the people that shaped our nation. I've said it before and I will say it again. The current administration is trying to erase the LGBTQIA history and turn back the clock of the rights of this community. It is so important that all of us who identify as part of these communities know someone, love them, support them in these communities. We have to raise our voices because we cannot allow our history to be erased and we cannot be forgotten." And then there's the duplex.
What is the duplex, Chris?
The duplex is another fun location if you are a little songbird who wants to join in with a bunch of singers. They
I always love a good karaoke session.
I know. This is a fun place. I have been to it multiple times. Again, when we talk about this area being a space for people to come and kind of steep themselves in the culture and the history that is Christopher Street, this is one of those locations. So it's next door to Stonewall, across the street from Monster Bar, and a great fun place. And it's actually, this is the street, whenever I talked about people running around the block to evade the small police presence at the time. This is one of the streets where they were running around because there was such a small police presence. They couldn't really detain the group. And so they kind of like split up and were going different ways to kind of evade.
Yeah. I mean, these buildings have seen a lot.
Yep, they sure have.
Well, Chris, thank you for making the time to bring me down here and to show me what the West Village and Sheridan Square and this area have experienced over the years, and for helping to continue to ground me in a history that we're not currently teaching in schools.
Correct.
That we're being told shouldn't be taught in schools, and it really is a part of the fabric of who we are as Americans. So,
correct.
Thank you for making the time to come share this with me and with all of the people that will be tuning in to hear. And you know, if you're wondering what you can do to help continue to support the cause, what we would ask is that you first just show up and you advocate and you remember that we are all human and we all deserve the same right to dignity and respect, and that you continue to advocate that this is a part of our history and it's not something that we should hide or erase.
No, we have to learn from our history.
Yeah.
That's how change happens.
That's how change happens. We have to continue to learn from our history. And I know that I certainly have learned a lot. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being open to it. Thank you for coming into the city. It's been great spending the time with you.
Always great. And it's starting to rain. So I think that's our cue to say goodbye and be kind and love each other. And we can't wait to see you next time.
Bye, everyone.